Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share this. So thank you very much for the invitation to be here. I am both very honored and really excited to share my study of this subject with you. In the next 3 interactive sessions, we will explore a method of meditative inquiry that transcends mere intellect and will help us to awaken our inner wisdom. Through this practice, a sacred space emerges, freeing us from conditioned thought and inviting insights to inspire us. Meditative inquiry offers a path that brings a holistic perspective, bridging the gap between our senses and spiritual consciousness. This approach can empower us to engage with life's complexities from a higher perspective. The practice begins with curiosity. Get away from the knowing mind, that part of us that has heard the words and concepts before and already knows. Start today and engage that curious mind. One of the ways to do this is to formulate questions. So today, as we go through the slides and for the rest of the weekend, start to formulate 3 questions that you would bring if you were coming to a study. Let me get down here and just, if we were to do this in a small group, we would leave time for dialogue, and each person would have the opportunity to share their insights on each of the subjects we're talking about. But for larger groups or with time constraints, I suggest that we use paper and pencil to write down your thoughts and see what insights come up for that. Using pen and paper is important. For writing is concentrated thinking. It's bringing the abstract into form, taking the chaos and the disorganization of all the thoughts and ideas popping up and brings them into order. As I go through the slides, I will introduce action items, and these are to give you ideas for the practical application of the concepts, and inquiry questions to spark curiosity and something to ponder over. So it is through a group in which all members, even if unacquainted with one another, work for each other, and by working for all, work for themselves. We will be made to realize that in union and harmony alone lies our strength and power. The object is to help the future growth of the Theosophical Society as a whole in the true direction by promoting brotherly union, at least among the few. This quote is one that HPB gave to her inner group. It is her idea of group work from an esoteric point of view, and it's the direction that we move in today. Union, harmony, and a true direction towards brotherhood. In order for our study to gain more of an occult influence, we must have harmony. That union and harmony begins with inner work of self-inquiry, whether we are studying on our own or in a group. So ask yourself, where do you find your center of peace? And how can you bring it forth so that your daily actions are spontaneously influenced from this center? The Theosophical teachings give us a common goal, that we realize the true spiritual nature of who we really are, and that all our work be done in service to humanity. It is in service and with the aim of this evolutionary stage that we build the field or the groundwork from which our study is influenced by wholeness, and we move away from the fragmented nature which our daily life is usually based. The practices of dialogue and meditative inquiry can help us to achieve what Blavatsky tells us here is not only possible, but absolutely desirable, promoting brotherly union. Okay, the meditative inquiry. With practice, we can move our perceptions from the realm of the senses toward the realm of the insights. This inquiry is done by maintaining the state of mind that Krishnamurti calls curiosity. He tells us that when I am curious, there is no personal motive. If there is a personal motive, there is no curiosity. Being curious without personal motive brings us to what he called choiceless awareness. Okay, so there are 4 aspects. Okay, so listen with a silent mind. This first skill is the beginning step that when practiced can be useful to purify and harmonize our bodies and prepare our minds, so that when we listen, speak, or study, we're coming from a place that is beyond the mundane use of words, whether it is a word heard, spoken, or written. This then is the intention from which we harmonize our conversations and create a brotherly atmosphere wherever we go. When we listen with the physical ear, it is a word heard. It implies the recording and remembering from the past knowledge, past experience, and memories. It is answering questions or making comments from a conditioned, fragmented place. When there is listening from beyond the physical ear or beyond the senses, we turn inward, and the state of listening is no longer fragmented. There is no past involved in the listening. There is no fragmentary answer or comment. There is only hearing with a curious mind, and here is where we open ourselves to insights. So to practice, keep in mind that words are powerful tools. And I'm suggesting here that we start with a few linguistic shifts, changes in the way we use words in order to create a change in the way we think about the processes by which we communicate. Listening with a silent mind. This skill requires listening beyond the senses. Once done, it redirects our intention in a conversation, and this intention then elicits a commitment towards inquiry. This is a skill and practice, and the practice begins by listening with curiosity, which is what creates a silent mind. This is a state that is beyond the place of chatter and movement. It takes us to a place of darkness, silence, and stillness of the mind, where every part of the conversation is heard, what is voiced and what is not voiced. It is this type of listening that doesn't aim to improve, to modify, to change. It doesn't condemn, judge, categorize, or even name. It is introspection and curiosity, which brings concentration, awareness, and focus. Krishnamurti tells us that the journey I am proposing that we take together is not to the moon or even to the stars. The distance to the stars is much less than the distance within ourselves. The discovery of ourselves is endless, and it requires constant inquiry, a perception which is total, and the awareness in which there is no choice. This journey is really an opening of the door to the individual in his relationship with the world. As Krishnamurti says in this task, it is not easy, but it is straightforward, and it is a skill which simply takes awareness and practice. This journey will help us to discover and unfold our true nature, and it begins with self-examination and ultimately will take us to a place where perception is whole and true. The practice of listening with curiosity towards a silent mind will move us towards a state of spiritual perception. For each of the steps given today, I'll provide you with an application, how to apply this concept, an exercise, the skill to practice, and the ideal state, the direction to which we are moving. Remember that the Masters of Wisdom require of us an intention of being in service to humanity and the willingness to simply try. Okay, the application: begin to listen with curiosity. with an unwavering trust and a consistent daily action towards the goal. One small act done with a trust in the outcome and consistency can outweigh a much more powerful act done infrequently. This is where we build a critical mass day by day, where the results come from the power of awareness of the mind, honest self-examination, and a natural curiosity. This naturally moves us towards acts of goodwill or altruism, and from here we build universal brotherhood and unity. The action item here is, what is one small thing that you can do each day and every day that will bring or make this skill proficient? Who can you listen to with curiosity, or when can you listen with curiosity? What can bring your mind to a place of silence? For the exercise, can you look at an object without naming it, describing it, commenting on it, or having opinion about it? These are all actions that come from the lower concrete mind, or kama manas. It is the place where ideals were formed by the past, a place of already knowing. The aim is to lessen this influence and come from a place that is open and unknown, which is uncomfortable at first. The skill is to be curious and receptive. What questions can you formulate about the things that we see each day? What can we begin to look at differently? Is there a different story to be listened to? When we look at an object or person and name it, we are limiting the object to what our senses can perceive. And from this fragmented state of mind, we create an inaccurate and restrictive point of view. When we look at it from the state of curiosity or unknowing, we are opening ourselves up to an infinite state that lies beyond the senses, and we instantly have the ability to take in the essence of the whole. Start with a small practice, looking at a flower, an animal, a dog, your cat, an irritation that arises in your mind or when you think of something. Okay, so the ideal state that we are aiming towards is listening from a place of silence and stillness. This has always been the goal of our sitting meditation, resting in the place of silence, stillness, and darkness, from which comes pure potentiality. When we begin to be aware of the movements of the mind in our sitting meditation, we expand the practice to our daily activities. And once this becomes a natural skill, eventually it will be used when situations are more challenging. Okay, are there any clarifying questions on this part so far? Okay, so we're good. All right, so the second step is responding from the heart. Heart-centered dialogue is not necessarily speaking from whatever feeling pops up. It is moving beyond the immediate impulse, beyond the mental processes of thinking or feeling and reacting, to the place where we respond from compassion, wholeness, and pure potentiality. Head or brain-centered responding is based on input from the senses, which is fragmented, limited, and unreliable. This is the lower mind. When we live influenced from kama manas, our thoughts, our words, our actions come from a reactionary state of being. Unawareness of this state causes us to then be pushed and pulled by ambition and the desire to control, judge, or just the need to get it right. This causes consciousness to be filtered or blinded and causes reactions in communication instead of the ability to respond with confidence and understanding. In this quote, Madame Blavatsky will give us the distinction between responding from the heart versus reacting from the brain and how this influences our consciousness. I'm going to read the quote now. The heart is the center of the spiritual consciousness, as the brain is the center of intellectual consciousness. But this spiritual consciousness cannot be guided by the personality until it is completely united with Buddhi Manas, or the enlightened mind. Until then, spiritual consciousness makes efforts to impress the lower consciousness, and those efforts are helped by growth in purity. The two aspects here are the heart, which corresponds to the spiritual consciousness or the Buddhic principle, and the brain, which corresponds to the intellectual consciousness or the monastic principle. In general, the Buddhic principle or the spiritual consciousness cannot break through to the personality. The personality is guided by the monastic nature, specifically lower manas. In an enlightened being or an adept, Buddhi and manas have merged, and the spiritual consciousness influences the personality. Then the adept masters the ability to use that spiritual consciousness at will. We as students cannot reach at will the spiritual consciousness, but this consciousness makes effort to reach the personality. This comes in flashes of inspiration, a sense of responsibility and duty, the source of all virtues. When this happens, we have manas taijasa, or the illumined mind. When we purify the personality, it makes it easier for the spiritual consciousness to influence its actions. And we are purifying our personality every time we move away from the ambitions of the ego and move towards the selflessness of the higher ego. Okay, the application. The application of this aspect is quoted from Mahatma K.H. It is with jealous care that we have to guard our mind plane from all the adverse influences which daily arise in our passage through earth life. To purify, we first must be able to distinguish between heart and brain movements, their reactions and consciousness. We will practice some of these exercises tomorrow morning in the next talk. But in general, look for the sources of your reactions to start with. Exercise. So ask yourself, where in my relationships am I most reactionary? What causes an instant impulsive reaction? And then through self-inquiry, look at these situations and with unbiased awareness, watch the reactions that come up. Start to question them. Why do they come up? And eventually we can get to the source of the reaction. By the process of watching and witnessing without attachment, the fragmented mind begins to find order. It is this order that we purify the physical, emotional, and mental bodies. And then from a state of stillness, we can respond with confidence, consistency, and coherence. Okay, the ideal state is when we can discern brain consciousness from heart consciousness, we create a space or a gap, a pause, and our actions come not from an immediate impulse, but from a response. And here there is natural compassion and wisdom. Okay, the next aspect is speak with awareness, with purpose and awareness. For the most part, the general state of the mind is survival mode, where there is no separation between impulse and action. It is constantly looking for who is an enemy, who is an ally, where is the incongruency, am I safe? These are the workings of an unguarded mind. Be aware that these are the movements of the lower mind. This mindset was useful when we were being hunted, chased, and in constant danger because our daily survival was in question. For the most part, our society has moved past that type of culture, but our brains are still working in those well-worn grooves or furrows of the animalistic and instinctive tendencies. These are called skandhas in theosophy. Naturally, our conversations tend to follow our state of mind. We have a feeling or thought and we speak. So before we can speak with purpose, we have to be aware of from where we speak. Can we take the time for self-examination and ask ourselves why we speak? Can we bring an awareness to our conversation and ask again, why do I speak? What are the motivations behind me voicing my opinion? Am I speaking to show what I know, to make sure I am heard, to overcome a fear, to be seen, to be respected, to teach, to correct, to break the silence? So these things aren't necessarily good or bad, but it's the awareness we're looking for that's behind the motivation to speak. So can we bring this awareness to our lodge meetings and decrease the ping pong ball effect that often is a result of our discussions? Can we take a pause, sit in the discomfort of our impulse, and take inventory of what is the state of mind from which I speak? When we become aware of the unnecessary chatter we produced, the noise pollution we make, the ambition behind our sharing, our speech slowly becomes more measured, more direct, and less full of opinions. And what fills the void is insights. This is the direction we want our dialogue to move towards, becoming purposeful and lean. And for those of you who don't speak up in meetings, ask yourself, why don't I speak? And examine that just as deeply. Is it out of fear of being wrong, or maybe just shyness? Curiosity and an inquiring mind can never be wrong. Start with, I wonder, and see where this takes you. We all have things to offer. Maybe a different perspective is just what is needed. Watch with a silent mind and see where you can join in the where we all can join in the dialogue. Okay, Radha Bernier, who is a past international president, shares with us her view on opinions and their place in dialogue. Dialogue also should not be a matter of venting opinions. Opinions are not truth. Can we succeed in dialoguing vital questions without being anxious to present our opinions, but seriously trying to learn more about the subject discussed, its depth of meaning and all the implications? What does it tell us about how to live, how to be related? What application does it have in life? Many questions have to be examined whenever we talk about anything worthwhile. We need to encourage exploration, the spirit of looking for truth and never saying, I know. Can theosophical groups attract people who really feel there is no religion higher than truth, not even the religion of our own opinions and concepts? Many of the opinions we form are formed unconsciously. Instead of unconscious reactionary opinions based on impulses, we should strive for responding based on careful consideration. All right, this one real quick. This is HPB's opinion on opinions. She tells us that the TS is a continuation of the Neoplatonic school, and that for Neoplatonists, opinions meant living on the basis of superficial phenomenon and not factual knowledge. She says, there should be a license and a fee to have an opinion. You should not be entitled to have an opinion about any subject that you are not specialized in. You must have a post-degree and training before having opinions. And if a person is famous, we tend to value their opinion on every subject, even what is outside their specialty. All right, so for the application, let us explore this question, which if one really went to it very deeply, would reveal an extraordinary state that the mind had probably never touched, a dimension not touched by superficial awareness. So the exercise is self-observation. Observing our speech and the opinions we form can help us understand what we believe in. We create visible identities of ourselves by being associated with strong opinions. C.W. Leadbeater, he was a theosophist around the time of Annie Besant, tells us that thoughts are things. And when opinions are energized with emotions, those things are stronger and carry more power. In theosophy, we call these thought forms. And unaware to us, they can populate our environment and have a powerful influence over our world or our daily mindset. The ideal state, speak with purpose and awareness from a state of pure being. So here I am using an image of the symbols that HPB uses to describe the emanation of the universe or the macrocosm. And we will use it to explore briefly the workings of the mind in man or the microcosm. This goes along with the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below. The process of manifestation going from its source to diversity. And we'll see more about this on the next slide. This concept will give us a foundation for a meditation that can be used to reverse the emanation or manifestation, retreating from the multiplicity or the diversity and bring our minds back to the unity. So what the bottom line says is just to reverse the manifestation of unity. That's the idea of in meditation. Okay, so first I'm going to show you the details of manifestation. The emanation or manifestation from the source, a homogeneous state of silence and darkness, the circle. In man, this is Atman. A polarity, the sense of pure being, the circle with the dot. In man, this is the Buddhic nature. The duality, or the awareness of thoughts and feelings, only the awareness without the interaction of the personality. This is the circle with the diameter. In man, it's manas. The multiplicity or diversity, the diversity of feelings, thoughts, and actions. I feel this. I have this thought. I should do this action. The circle with the vertical line added to make a cross. The cross symbolizing matter. In man, this is the personality. Now we're going to reverse the manifestation process, and the idea is to bring our minds working from the multiplicity to the unity. First, we practice in sitting meditation, and then in daily life. We watch the personality engage with the motions of the mind. Notice when the personality engages with comments, judgments, or opinions about what comes into view. This is the state of multiplicity of our thoughts, feelings, and all the attachments that come with them. The next stage on the way up is, after some practice, the interaction between the watcher and the motion becomes a duality. We are just uninterestedly watching the movements of the feelings and the thoughts. Here in dialogue, we are beginning to soften our responses. The goal of meditation is one beyond this step. It's silence, stillness, and darkness. The yellow star is the state of pure potentiality, or where the yellow star is. It is the goal of meditative inquiry. It is a place that opens up the possibility of dialogue from insights, and where we can dialogue from a common ground in spite of our differences. Okay, the last piece. It is from a spontaneous state of interior silence that we can open ourselves to our true nature. There are 3 stages. The first stage is a spontaneous impulse from ignorance, where unknowingly we are pushed and pulled automatically. We are pulled towards what is pleasant and likable and pushed away from what is unpleasant or unlikable. This impulse comes from kama, the animal man, and the instinctual behavior patterns. The third stage is spontaneousness from wisdom, a spontaneous response from wisdom. Here we are influenced by our higher nature, and our actions, thoughts, and emotions spontaneously move in the direction of selflessness and wholeness, regardless of how it feels to the personality. This is where the spiritual mind dwells. So the second stage is the middle ground. Here is where the majority of humanity spend most of their time, the place of entanglement between ignorance and wisdom, in which our consciousness, manas, at times tends towards kama, or at other times tends towards buddhi. This dance is between the animal man and the spiritual man. And this is the bridge or the relationship between the two poles. When the monastic entity or the higher ego sends an impulse downwards to the lower nature with which it is linked, it appears to the personality as spontaneous, free, uncaused by any action on the lower plane. And so it is, for the causes that work on the personality are of the higher, not the lower planes. So in the diagram of meditation, HPB tells us this action builds a substratum of memory. She says, from this originates a substratum of memory which does not cease in dreaming or waking. Its manifestation is courage. This is the level from which we want our lives to be influenced by. This is the place true dialogue comes from. Okay, so the application, the idea is to move from out of the entanglement of the intertwined triangles to the central ankh, where spirit rules over matter. In the logo of the TS, the six-pointed star consists of the white triangle pointing up, the black triangle pointing down, corresponding to the spiritual aspects in humanity and the material ones. They are intertwined because here is the battleground of spirit and matter, with the aim of human pilgrimage is towards the center, symbolized by the ankh, where spirit, the circle, rules over matter, the cross. Okay, just have a couple, I'll just finish these, this application, this set. So exercise, for the exercise, the diagram of meditation, in the diagram of meditation, HPB gives us what we should bring to our daily life and what we should take away. So the first one is the acquisitions, aligning our participation with our higher nature. Take note of what it is that we do on a daily basis that aligns with the spiritual consciousness or our higher nature. And what do we need to acquire more of? The second one is the deprivations, purifying our lower nature so that our higher can be reflected. What can we deprive the personality of so we naturally purify our physical, emotional, and mental bodies? Examining and changing external habits is a start, but also include the examination and change of internal habits. How does this mind relate to life? Where is there anger, defensiveness, ambition, selfish thinking? The ideal state is to tap into the substratum. From here, our actions become spontaneous. Spontaneity, not from the place of ignorance, but from a place of wholeness and wisdom. And that's it. These are the two books that Pablo has written, and they're on sale either from our website or from Amazon Canada. So I just want to summarize the four steps or the four aspects. So it's listen with the silent mind, respond from the heart, speak with purpose and awareness, and tap into the substratum. So tomorrow we'll do the exercises that correspond with these steps.